So let us, now you all can hear me? Okay. So let us start with the Mangalacharan. Om Agnanatimmirandasya Nananjana Shalakaya Chakshumitam Ena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Abhishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Ayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Pada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vittam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakana Vittamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dino Bandho Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sote Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatra Abhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitam Nam Pavne Bo Vaishnavo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pascha Desha Tarine Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So you all can hear me now? Hare Krishna.
Yep.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, Mataji. Now let us start, right? Something to do with the technical things. So what we do, we just completed the chapter 4. So in chapter 2, Krishna had given all the answers, arguments for the clarifications to Arjuna. But still Arjuna had doubts. So in chapter 3, he started telling about Karma Yoga. Okay, why karma is of importance, how to do your prescribed duties. And then in this chapter 4 was about the transcendental knowledge, because it's just doing the work without knowing about the Lord is not going to help you. So he says, by understanding the transcendental knowledge of the Lord, and what is the advantage? You will get liberated from this material world. Just Janma Karma Divya. Just understanding that and doing your prescribed duties, you will be liberated from this material world. That is a guarantee. And that depends upon the reciprocation, depends on the degree of surrender. How much we surrender to the Lord, to that degree he will reciprocate. It's just merely learning the theory is not enough. We have to take it, imbibe it, and in every action of us, we have to remember that the Lord is there, and he is the one who is there. So being in Krishna consciousness throughout, it depends on that. So it depends on the degree of surrender he reciprocates. Okay. And then he also talked about the Varnashrama system. It is only to uplift the human beings to Krishna consciousness, because he knows the mentality, the aptitude and the attitude of the human beings. It's all varied. It all depends on what aptitude they have for the work and for the. So it is depending on your guna and the thing, you get your prescribed karma, right? And you have 4 classes, and they have to work together knowingly, and they will uplift together to the because it is supposed to work together, complement each other, coordination. And today also you see the same system, but it is all what you call perverted. It's not as it was in the Vedic culture, okay? But it will be there because it's a system. And then we talked about karma, vikarma, and akarma, which is the one which is you don't get any reactions. And how it is that? Because you will be doing it for the Lord, for the Krishna. Any activity, any thought, you are working for the Lord, then you don't get into any bondage. Then also and then without how to get this knowledge is you have to pay a price. You have to do some sacrifices. Either that it is looked into that, various type of sacrifices. Some sacrifice the material possessions, some sacrifice their time and things to cultivate the spiritual knowledge. And also the Ashtanga, you practice the pranayama as per the Patanjali Yoga system, and many things we said, and depends upon the different kind of people we have, right? Living entities. And what is the sacrifices they do? It leads to transcendental. You have to do some austerities. You have to pay a price, isn't it? But how do we do it? We can't do that so easily. So he talked about how to take a shelter of a spiritual master. Tat vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. You will get the knowledge from the spiritual master who is self-realized. He can give it to you. But we have to take, these are the 3 steps. You have to approach humbly to a spiritual master, ask questions, inquire from him, and serve him. So these are the 3 steps to take to get this. So he will help us to get the knowledge, transcend knowledge. And then finally, Krishna is concluding that with the sword of fire of knowledge, you cut your ignorance and do your duty. Stand up and fight. Finally concludes that. Okay. So what is going to be in chapter 5? Chapter 5, again, Arjuna is not fully convinced. Okay. He is still having certain doubts. He thinks still that renouncing work or take up sannyas, or why renounce work, which is better. So he's talking about that. So we have 5 sections where it starts off with the Arjuna's query. When Krishna says Nishkama Karma Yoga is much easier than renouncing work. Both are same, but Nishkama Karma Yoga is much easier. So we'll see how it is. And then how to perform Nishkama Karma Yoga. He explains like that. You'll be like a lotus leaf. And then there's a new concept, perception will come up with the knowing the 3 doers, and liberation focus on super soul. And he briefly touches Ashtanga Yoga, which he will take up in chapter 6. Okay, and then he concludes with a peace formula, which you can. That is, here he is giving us steps leading to a life of liberation, freedom, and tranquility. So this is the overview of this chapter. Okay, Karma Yoga action. All beings, so when we talk about the Krishna consciousness, so we are talking about the consciousness, isn't it? What is our thought process? So here it starts with we all make plans for the future, right? That means before you take any action, there will be some thoughts. Only when thoughts are manifested in okay. So thoughts are manifested in action, isn't it? Before you take an action, you'll be thinking about it, and finally some thoughts of that you manifest in actions. And when these actions you keep repeatedly doing it, there are some actions you do it repeatedly, right? Then they form habits, right? And when they become habits, that becomes your character, because that's the one which you're inclining and you're doing it repeatedly and you're doing it in a thing. So, and this character will determine your destiny, right? So this is how the mind works. But how to take steps in the right direction is what is described in this 5th chapter. So when we talk about karma or action in Krishna consciousness, this is all about which has been discussed in this particular chapter, right? And there are steps which leads to further entanglement in worldly complexities. And there are steps leading to life of liberation, freedom, and tranquility and peace. So it is our choice which step we want to follow. So here Krishna is clearly distinguishing. How you follow like this, you will be able to lead a life of liberation. So it all starts with thoughts and action. So if you start thinking about it, that means if you can change your thought process, if you can add this reflection about what the Lord is saying, then slowly you'll be able to implement it, right, into your actions. And then slowly, then you can even change your destiny. Because that's what we said. Like we took this birth, this body is because of our past karma. And what we're doing in this life will decide upon the body we get in the next birth, right? So it is in our hands. And so if you can start with the thought process, and reflect about what's the Lord instructions given by Krishna, you can slowly change your destiny. So what is the query by Arjuna? Again asked whether renouncing work is superior to working with detachment. So Krishna is replying that both are equal because the both are having the same goal. That is, they want to reach the Lord. Okay, that is why you want to take sannyas. But working with detachment is as easy. Working with detachment is easier and superior. That means you're renouncing the work is renouncing the results. Working with detachment is much easier. Okay. Arjuna uvacha sannyasam karmanam Krishna punar yoga cha samsashi et shreya etyar ekam tan me bruhi so nishchitam. Bruhi so nishchitam means tell me definitely. Tell me definitely what is beneficial. Et shreya, what is thing. That is sannyasa, renounce the work. Again, first of all, you ask me to renounce work, and again, you recommend work with devotion. So he doesn't understand what you mean by renouncing work. That is, it's not telling you to renounce work, we are telling to renounce the results. Okay. So, see, this confusion, if you trace it out from the chapter 2, you can see, first in chapter 2, what does he say? He says work through Buddhi Yoga. In fact, he told us about our Atma. We are the spirit soul and we are the not the body. And then he told us to work with determination. Because anything you do in this spiritual path is not waste, it will be carried out. That's a credit. So he told her, and he talked about the Stira Dhira Muni, right? Then that was the time. When he says he was using the word buddhi everywhere, so he thought jnana or buddhi yoga. So that was the confusion which he asked in chapter 3, what he should do. He thought, why get to do anything because you're going to get the reactions for that activity. So might as well not do anything. Then he said, it's not that. You have to do your duty. And how to do it, he told us. He heard about karma through jnana. Then in chapter 3, there was this thing. That is, you do action, inaction, and inaction. Actually, inaction means either not doing work, but also no reaction. So actually, he was talking about akarma. Okay, he was clearly talking about akarma in chapter 4. Conclusion was, he was glorifying the transcendental knowledge because only by spiritual intelligence we can come out of this. Otherwise, it's not possible. So he was glorifying it, and we have to do different. Yes, Mataji, you have any question? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Can you please repeat that action in action and action in inaction in action, please, Mataji? I got confused. Can you explain completely?
Yes, Mataji. Here it is like, you do an activity, but will that have a reaction or not? That depends upon and what is the focus. So here he says, action, you might have done an activity, but there might not have been a reaction. That is because you are doing it for the Lord. But you may not doing any activity, but still you might refrain from doing a duty, but that will give a reaction because it was supposed to be a duty, but you're not doing it. That is inaction, right? But there is a reaction. So he says that is why there's a confusion. The way you understand these words, inaction, action means karma, right? Inaction could be no karma or it could be no reaction. So if you look at it, it will be able to understand. Okay? Have I made it clear, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji. Okay. Yes, Mataji.
So that is how you have to take, because these words, that like Brahman in some context, it will be like your soul or jiva. In some context, it is energy. So it depends upon which context Brahman, the word is used. Same here with karma and akarma, inaction, you have to understand that way. So he was glorifying the thing. So Arjuna is still confused. You might think, why is Krishna is playing with Arjuna? Why is he making confused? It is for our benefit, so that we don't get confused. And he's is stressing that work and renunciation are not opposed to each other. We have to learn to work in a renounced spirit. That means it is our duty because it has been told by Lord, we have to do our duty and we don't have to worry about the success or failure because it's all for the Lord. So once you work in that renounced spirit, that is what Krishna is trying to stress here. Okay. But Arjuna is thinking jnana means renunciation of work. And that knowledge and work are like mean they don't go together. But only knowledge should also work. So this is what here Krishna is emphasizing. Okay. So Arjuna's confusion was like this. You work for sense activity must be given up. Yes, Prabhuji, Sanjay Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I'm confused here. What are we doing? Chapter 4, chapter 5?
We are only giving the prelude to chapter 5, Prabhuji, because why is coming to this confusion? We are just going back. That's been explained in the purport of 5.1, the whole thing Prabhupada writes. So we are just giving out the prelude. What is why is again and again Arjuna is confused? Why is he talking in? So he thinks, why is Krishna talking in riddles? So we are coming from that. Okay. But,
okay, thank you.
Okay, Prabhuji. It's all given in the purport, Prabhuji. I just put what is in the purport by Prabhupada's commentary. I put it in the slides. Okay?
Okay. Okay, Mataji. Thank you.
Right. Which is better, work with devotion or renunciation of work? So Krishna says, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nishresa Karava Bhubau Tayostu Karma Sannyasa Karma Yoga Vishishat. Karma Yoga Vishishat. The renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. So you can see in the purport, we can see what Prabhupada writes. Hare Krishna sound. That fruitive activities seeking sense gratification are cause for material bondage. As long as one is engaged in activities aimed at improving the standard of bodily comfort, one is sure to transmigrate to different types of body, thereby continuing material bondage perpetually. So this is what is said. So anybody can think, Chandrika Mataji, you can read this. People are mad after. Or any Prabhuji, please.
Okay, Mataji.
Mataji, I am not able to see the screen.
Okay, Mataji.
People are mad after sense gratifications, and they do not know what that this present body, which is full of miseries, is a result of one's fruitive activities in the past. Although this body is temporary, it is always giving one trouble in many ways. Therefore, to act for sense gratification is not good. One is considered to be a failure in life as long as he makes no inquiry about his real identity. As long as he does not know his real identity, he has to work for fruitive results for sense gratification. And as long as one is engrossed in the consciousness of sense gratification, one has to transmigrate from one body to another. Although the mind may be engrossed in fruitive activities and influenced by ignorance, one must develop a love for devotional service to Vasudeva. Only then one can have the opportunity to get out of the bondage of material existence.
Hare Krishna. So
Hare Krishna,
this is what he said in the Bhagavatam, that only if you develop a love for devotional service to the Lord, you can get the opportunity to get out of the bondage of material existence. So continue, Prabhuji. Therefore, Jnana. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Anybody else can volunteer?
Mataji?
You can read, Prabhu Mataji?
Yes, Mataji. Can I continue, Mataji?
Yeah, please do that.
Therefore, Jnana or knowledge that one is not this material body but spirit soul is not sufficient for liberation. One has to act in the status of spirit soul. Otherwise, there is no escape for material bondage. Action in Krishna consciousness is not, however, action on the fruitive platform. Activities performed in full knowledge strengthen one's advancement in real knowledge. Without Krishna consciousness, mere renunciation of fruitive activities does not actually purify the heart of a conditioned soul. As long as the heart is not purified, one has to work on the fruitive platform. But action in Krishna consciousness automatically helps one escape the result of fruitive action, so that one need not descend to the material platform. Therefore, action in Krishna consciousness is always superior to renunciation, which always entitles a risk of falling. Renunciation without Krishna consciousness is incomplete, as is confirmed by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.258. Prapanchikatya buddhya hari sambandhi vastunaha mumukashubhihi parityago vairagyam palgu katyate. When persons eager to achieve liberation renounce things related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thinking them to be material, their renunciation is called incomplete. Renunciation is complete when it is in the knowledge that everything is existence belongs to the Lord and that no one should claim proprietorship over anything. One should understand that factually nothing belongs to anyone. Then where is the question of renunciation? One who knows that everything is Krishna's property is always situated in renunciation. Since everything belongs to Krishna, everything should be employed in the service of Krishna. This perfect form of action in Krishna consciousness is far better than any amount of artificial renunciation by a sannyasi of the Mayavadi school. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
So renunciation is that what are we renouncing? We are not renouncing it because everything is the Lord. We are not, I mean, whatever is there in the material world is made by the Krishna. So everything is belonging to the Lord and it is his property. So we don't have anything to sacrifice. Okay. So when we are, what's a question of something which we had and we are renouncing? No, we are, but everything belongs. Once you work with that consciousness, then it is better, because whatever the Mayavadi school say, they are only doing artificial renunciation. So here Prabhupada clearly writes about renunciation, right? So here it's better to work in devotion because that devotional service is better. And he continues to say, one who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced, because he doesn't hate. Dveshti na kankashti. Such a person, free from all devotees, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated, Almighty Andanshala. Because he is just doing it as duty, he is not hating it or liking it, because it is his duty to do the work. Only the ignorant speak of devotional service as being different from the analytical study of the material world. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results. Okay. So one who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be the same. So that is people who say, no, you renounce everything, become a sannyasi, it's like, because it's all material, and we should not engage our senses in it, otherwise you get entangled. So it's like, you want to give up, take up the sannyas. So that is a analytical study, Sankhya Yoga philosophy. And here Krishna is talking about Karma Yoga, where he says you work with devotion. That means you connect yourself during your work to the Lord. Yoga means connecting, right? So, but though they look, the goal is the same, but the way we approach is different. So he says there is a, and here Krishna Prabhupada writes in the purport very nicely. One of the Prabhujis can, I think, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, Praveen Prabhuji, right. Good.
Sankhya and devotional service. In the first process, Sankhya, one has to become detached from the matter. And in the devotional yoga process, one has to attach himself to the work of Krishna consciousness. Factually, both processes are the same, although superficially, one process appears to involve detachment and other process appears to involve attachment. Detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna are one and the same. One who can see this one who can see this sees things as they are.
So, so what Prabhupada says, both are same actually, right? Because once you start attaching to your Krishna, and you slowly the detachment from the matter happens. You don't have to endeavor for that. So, I mean, you superficially one will think, okay, these two are different process, but actually, this is easier attaching to, because when you say something not to do, then your mind wants to do it, right? So here it's Krishna, the one who is wise, they know it is the same, but it is easier to take to attachment to Krishna. So merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in devotional service of the Lord cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay. So that by renouncing things, you will not be happy, because you have to engage with the Lord. If you are trying to detach the thing, then you will not be happy. That's what Krishna is telling us. So both are the same in many ways means both will hate, do not hate, because they neither hates nor desires fruits. They are free from dualities and they are liberated. They want to get, but he comes to understand that he is soul, not this body, becomes detached from matter. Because he's thinking that he is the soul and not the body, he wants to detach himself from matter. But here, what the Krishna conscious person is, he knows that he is the soul and not the body, but he becomes attached to working for Krishna. That is the only difference. Here, because he thinks that's what happens when the minute you say you're the soul and the body, we want to get detached from the matter. But instead, if you become attached to working for Krishna, then slowly the detachment occurs. That is karma yoga. So don't deny desires, neither kill them, try to purify them. That means you try to work for the Lord. So these are the basic differences between Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga. Aim is the same, because both are trying to find the soul of existence, because when they try to detach themselves, they're trying to do by yogic practice, focus on the Paramatma in the heart. So they're trying to find the root. And their focus is to become detachment from the material thing. But actually it's a difficult process, because you're forbidding your senses. You're trying to control your senses and the mind, right? That is this process. Whereas in Karma Yoga, what we do is we are rendering service to the Supreme Lord, Super Soul. By service means we have the 9 process, no? Hearing, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, all the 9 Bhakti process. And there what you're doing, you're directly watering the root. So there is a spiritual attachment, because we are trying to attach to the Lord. And it is easy, and your senses are engaged. But when you say, when chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, you're engaging your tongue, you're engaging your ear. So you're engaging your senses, where you're trying here to try to meditate, so they're trying to control them, control the thing. So that is difficult, and this is easy. That's what been explained in this 5.1 to 5.6 verses. Now, he is going to explain more about how to perform Nishkama Karma Yoga. So yeah, he told you how it is easy compared to the sannyas. And now he's giving us more about how to work with detachment. So working with identifies neither his body nor his activities that his body performs. By his detached actions, he is freed from the reactions of his activities because he's got the perfect knowledge. That is, he's not the material body and he's the soul, a part and parcel of the Lord. And his work and his position is to render service to him. And he will work in a detached spirit. You won't get attached to the results. Okay. Who are you? I'm a servant. I mean, the same thing I've been repeated here. Work allotted by God. How do you do the work? I work hard with sincerity, dedication to my best. What do you do with the results? Hand it over to the Lord. So that's what others are greedy for the fruits of the labor, so they get entangled. So one who works in devotion, who is pure soul, Vishuddhatma, and who controls his mind, Vijittatma, and senses is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him, though always working such a man is never entangled. So you might ask why. So here is clearly saying that if they do it Nishkama Karma Yoga, then they never get entangled. Okay. Let us see the purport. There is something there I wanted to see. So, because why is saying the path, one who is on the path of liberation, the Krishna consciousness is very dear to every living being, and every living is because in Krishna consciousness, he cannot think of any living being as separate from Krishna, just as leaves and branches of a tree are not separate from the tree. So he knows very well that by pouring water to the root, everything, I mean, the water gets distributed to an entire thing. So the energy is automatically distributed to body. So here it is clearly said, because everyone is satisfied his work, he is pure in consciousness. Because he is pure in consciousness, his mind is completely controlled. And because his mind is controlled, the senses are also controlled. Because his mind is always fixed in Krishna, there is no chance of his deviated from Krishna, nor is there chance that he will engage his things other than service of the Lord. This is perfection. That is when they reach the Nishkama Karma Yoga. Okay. And he will not hear anything except topics related to Krishna. He does not like to eat anything which is not offered to Krishna, and is not wish to go anywhere if Krishna is not involved. Therefore, his senses are controlled. And when he is done like that, a man of controlled senses cannot be offensive to anyone. Now we are saying that Arjuna is in the battle and he is trying to hurt anybody. So here, Arjuna was only superficially offensive because all the assembled peoples on the battlefield will continue to live individually as the soul cannot be lived. So spiritually, no one was killed on the battlefield of conviction. Only their dresses were changed by the orders. Therefore, Arjuna, while fighting on the battlefield, was not really fighting at all. He was simply carrying out the orders of Krishna in full consciousness. So such a person is nothing. So this is what is being clearly talked about, how Nishkama Karma Yoga, how he doesn't get entangled. Because he is fully, his mind is controlled and his senses are controlled because he's always thinking about the Lord and always works in the consciousness. A person in divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping and breathing, means all his senses, your ears, eyes, nose, smell, everything, all the indriyas are all engaged, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving or opening, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with the objects, and that is allusion. That means he desires to do the things, but everything is carried out by his material indriyas. Okay. So one who performs with this duty without attachment, surrender rules into the Supreme, is unaffected by sinful action. So here he compares the Nishkama Karma Yoga to a lotus leaf. How it is there in the water, but it is not touched, because water leaf doesn't get absorbed, water doesn't get absorbed in the leaf. So he says you should be like that. When you do the work, you're there in the material world, but you're doing the action but you are not getting involved with the results. And I think with this I will close, because you can just observe how Prabhupada is, I don't know if you have seen this video. Let me share this. Just watch Prabhupada, when he's So you see how Prabhupada was not disturbed with whatever was happening around him. Was so focused on his chanting, right? That's how he is. So yogis abandoning attachment, act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses only for the purpose of purification. The steady, devoted soul attains peace because he offers the results of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the results, becomes entangled. Yukta karma palam tata. Okay. So the next thing, so the difference between a person in Krishna consciousness and a person in bodily consciousness is that former is attached to Krishna, whereas the latter is attached to the results of his activities. So the person who is attached to Krishna and works for him only is certainly a liberated person. So, and he has no anxiety over the results of his work. So this is what we learned in this 10-12 verses. I don't know if you all know this story about Virga's fall down. Hare Krishna. Anybody knows about this? Huh?
No, Mataji.
Okay, there was a Krishna, King Virga. He was fond of performing fruitive activities. Means he did a lot of sacrifices. And he was giving charity to brahmanas and the thing. So, what happens is one day while he was giving his, when he gives the brahmanas, the charity, he will give cows and he give gold and everything, right? So, but one of the cows, what happens, he would have given it to a brahmana thing, but it comes back to his Goshala. But the king doesn't realize that. Okay, that which he had given for in charity, it has come back to his Goshala. So the next day when he was giving the charity, the same cow was given to a second brahmana. So the first brahmana will come, he will be searching for this cow, which was given to him, and he'll come back searching, and then he sees this second brahmana taking this cow. So they're both getting to fight. So when they come to the king and say that you gave this to me yesterday and now you're giving the same cow to this, you're doing a mistake. Actually, this mistake was done by the king unknowingly, right? He didn't know that. But there was a fight and he tries to pacify them saying that, okay, I'll give you some more cows. Why don't you think? But they don't get it. They curse. And so when he leaves his body, when he goes to the Yamaraj, he'll ask him, what do you want to think? Whether you want to enjoy first your pious activities or suffer for your impious activities. He says, let me first finish off my impious activities. So because of this fault which he has done, he becomes a lizard and he'll be lying in the well. Okay? Because, and during the Krishna's time, the children will find this thing and they're not able to bring out the lizard out of the well. Then they call Lord Krishna, and when Lord Krishna comes, he touches the lizard and he gets liberated. So when he got delivered, then he confesses what happened, how it all happened and how he became a lizard. So you do your fruit, you are doing a charity work, right? But if you are not doing it as a devotional service for the Lord, you're just doing it for to get more and more punya, you want to add your credit, then you're getting entangled. So this is what the story is all about. about the King Nirga, how he devotional service only auspicious acts. You should do it for the Lord. Then you won't get any reaction. But he was doing all this charity work and sacrifices to add more to his punya activities, and even never thought about the Lord. So that is the reason why he got entangled. Okay. This is the essence.
Mataji, like you said that you should do the karma by thinking for Lord. Like Nirga was giving charity, but
Yeah, he's following the rituals, no, Vedic rituals, and he's doing the sacrifices and things.
Can you just emphasize on that how when you're doing charity, how you should do for Krishna? Can you just tell us the difference?
Yeah, but you should not become proud that I'm doing so much. So this is what I mean, either for your glorification, right? Charity has to be done in the mode of goodness or in the mode of passion or in the thing. So it depends on which mode you are doing it. Which with which intent are you doing your charity? Are you doing it for self glorification, or are you doing it for the welfare of the people? I mean, as a charity, or you're doing it because you want to give it for the Krishna's people. So the way you're doing it, the mode of goodness or mode of thing, that's what happens. And he was doing it for himself. He wanted to do a lot of punya he wanted to get. He had some selfish motive. That's the reason.
No, if we have to do for Krishna, how should we do?
You should give it to the mode of goodness, Mataji.
That means we should not think what we will get back. We have to just do it.